everyone, today we're taking a look at some new HDzero box goggles. These are the BoxPro, or the other version, which is the BoxPro Plus. The Plus version has Wi-Fi streaming services as well as ExpressLRS or ELRS backpack features. I'm not much of a user when it comes to the ExpressLRS backpack feature, so if you want to dive into that, I'm sure there's plenty of videos on the internet. The Wi-Fi streaming service is this: if you have some sort of mobile device or a device that has Wi-Fi built into it, you can connect to the HDzero network that this has, and then you can stream what you see in the goggles onto that mobile device. I too don't use that feature really in my everyday use of my goggles, whether I'm testing these or I'm using the longtime goggles that I've been using, which are these HDzero goggles. And I bring these into the picture because in many regards, when I think about the BoxPro and the BoxPro Plus, I'm comparing them almost directly to their own product. So these goggles, without the Wi-Fi module and the add-on adapter over here, are $500. And then you have to add antennas. So you have additional cost. You add the Wi-Fi adapter if you want that, or you add this module if you're like me and you fly whoops or any other sort of analog-based quad, and then you add antennas to those. So you've got a pretty hefty investment in that. And the BoxPro and the BoxPro Plus have all those features without the additional cost of all the antennas. I do think stock you do get some basic antennas with the HDzero goggles, but these come with these antennas, and I will be showing you a comparison and reception between my HDzero goggles and these. Of course, it's not science-based. The antennas are different. But the thing that comes to mind with me during the period of time over the course of the last 8 days of using these is if you fly HDzero or you fly analog, these goggles are of great value. I think the Cobra X goggles, when I last looked them up, were right around that $300 marker, and those only do analog. This has two sets of antennas, just like with other HDzero goggles. You have patch antennas, what some people tend to call high gain patch antennas here in the front, and then you have these two linear antennas up top. And I will be showing a comparison video that I put together in both analog and HDzero, because this does both. And we don't find that in too many goggles anymore. At best, we find a set of goggles that does analog, and then you add on a VRX or something like that for HDzero or Walksnail. If you're going to be flying DJI, these do not do DJI. DJI doesn't, to my knowledge, offer us really any ability to even plug in another set of goggles in order to see what's on there. So these are very feature rich. The other kind of predominant feature of these goggles, and there's a third one I'll get to in just a moment, is the fact that it has 100 hertz, as you might expect if you're familiar with HDzero screen, as well as an 1800 nits screen inside. And it is a high quality screen. I've reviewed a number of box goggles over the years. It's been a couple years since we've seen a new box goggle kind of launch, but this looks really good. I have got a recording from the HDMI output that I'll record, and it doesn't do it justice to what you see inside the goggles itself. The third feature that I think is pretty interesting, and that people such as myself who need and wear glasses, is this has carve-outs to where you can use your glasses inside the goggles. See these little pieces right here? Currently it has foam in it because I don't need to wear my glasses inside these goggles. Another bonus, I am a little bit nearsighted. My prescription isn't very strong. As a matter of fact, on a daily basis when I'm working in front of a computer, I take my glasses off. But oftentimes in box goggles, I can't quite get them to focus. I need them to be an extra inch or inch and a half away from my face. Not with these. I can focus with these. But if you're not able to focus, you can wear glasses inside these, and we will measure that distance and that gap. But this has a separate piece in here that you can see as I'm kind of manipulating things around, if I can get my fingers on it, that this foam piece is separate. You just wouldn't put those in order to be able to slide the earpieces in for your glasses. Of course, this piece over here is more flexible. You may want to tinker with that in order to protect yourself from light leak. As far as light leak goes, I'm not a fan of that sort of testing. I did look for light leak, and just about like with every goggle I've ever tried, if I'm outside and even if I got the screen on and it's sunny out and I look around the goggles, yeah, there's a bit of light leak. I noticed it mainly up by my eyebrow, and it's going to be different for everyone because our faces are all very, very unique, how they're shaped and whatnot. I do find, as far as fitment goes, that long term I would probably try to carve out a little bit of the foam in the nose piece because of my predominant snooter there. I do find that I have to kind of get the goggles way down on my nose in order to be able to see the entire screen and for them to sit comfortably. I don't find that they pinch my nose or anything like that. It's just I can't get my nose far enough down, and this foam is pretty thick. I think I can carve out a little bit and it'll be spot on for me. Let's get down to the desk. We'll take some measurements, and then after that, we'll take a look at the menuing system so you can get kind of a feel for this, what I think is a very modern menu system. We're seeing a little bit of a better menuing system than we did in years past because of DJI and Walksnail. And then we'll also take a look at the reception testing that I did. That reception testing is not high science. I have different antennas. I'm wearing the box goggles. I'm not wearing these, so they're at different positions. But it helps you get some reassurance when you're comparing these two different goggles about how well it does receive, at least in my typical flight spaces. I should mention before we get down there, it comes with a 4-foot long barrel connector to XT60 to power this on, and the strap also comes with a housing for a battery. Hopefully you can see that right here. So you can put a battery in here if you don't mind that weight on your head, and then you can plug it in down on the bottom. So that's kind of the battery stuff. It does also come with a card that gives you a little bit of information about the goggles. It's actually kind of a nice card. I think it's the same card they had for the HDzero. They just redesigned it for the BoxPro. And then you have a cleaning cloth, which again is a typical accessory. But the last but not least, for carrying purposes, it does come with a nice bag that the goggles do fit in. Although I do think you need to take off the antennas, especially if you have antennas that stick up much, before you put them in the goggles, just to make sure you don't damage those SMA connectors on the top of those goggles. Okay, we'll go around the horn. We have our SMA connectors up here at the top. Hopefully you can see that connector in there. They don't feel loose. They don't feel like they're going to wiggle free. They should be mounted in firmly. The grill, from an aesthetic standpoint, the grills on these actually made me think that it was made of metal, but I don't think it is. It could be. I just can't quite tell. But the grills were something that caught my eye as kind of sharp. Of course, this is our fan up top, and we have more airflow vents or grills on both sides. This is our primary dial, and within the interface, you can actually change what the buttons and the dials do. You can select different features or functions, but it's a scroll wheel with a center button, and this side over here is just a button. Across the bottom, we have all sorts of features. Let me turn this this way a little bit. So we have our head tracker over here. We can plug in a microphone here. We have our micro SD card right here. It is spring loaded. It does have a pinhole over here for the release in case the micro SD card gets wedged or lodged in there. Obviously, this is HDMI in. This is not the large size of HDMI connector. This is what they call the mini HDMI. It's not the micro. This is where our barrel connector connects to, and it does power via 2 to 6S. I've been using a 4S battery on mine. Of course, we have our branded HDzero red power strip, and we also have audio video in and out, and we have another HDMI port, and this time it is out. So you have both HDMI in and HDMI out. HDMI in, it seems like for our purposes, we would primarily use that to connect to a computer to run our FPV simulators and get more of a direct feel of the simulator within the goggles, kind of keep everything on the outside world away. HDMI out, you could use that to connect to another device to share the video of your flight with someone, or maybe you could set that up to record secondarily. You wouldn't need that because this has one of the best DVRs. If not, well, if you're not including DJI and Walksnail DVRs, this is the best DVR. It is the most consistent. It records at 60 frames per second. It's got a fairly high bit rate. And if you watch my videos and all the analog, especially micros, I oftentimes get questions about why does your footage look so good? One of it is reception. I use those HDzero goggles. And one of it is the fact that this DVR is got the whole system has a deinterlacer, but when you record that deinterlaced video, it looks nicer. It looks smoother. So what you see inside is smoother than what you traditionally see because of the deinterlaser and then the nice screen, of course. But what you get on your DVR output is also nicer. It's something I've really enjoyed using. Of course, I am a very unique use case in that I do post the videos to YouTube. So getting good DVR footage is something that I appreciate for quite a bit because I struggled for years to get good DVR. You do have to apply the foam padding, and it's the same sort of foam padding that we'd find on the other HDzero goggles. It's got a soft feel to it. Maybe you can get a feel for how dense it is. I don't find it to be hard. The only thing that I think as far as the foam fitment goes, this tends to get in here a little bit. Because there's no, if you can see right here, there's nothing that this top section kind of secures up against to hold its position. And again, as I said earlier, these pieces are stuck in here currently because I found I didn't need to use my glasses. But if you wanted to use your glasses, do dry fitting after you get your goggles and then decide whether you're going to put this in or not, because it is secured in there with sticky tape. Obviously, I've got some of my own hairs stuck in there. We have a little bit of a magnifying lens there. Now, the materials that they have on these goggles read as though you can change these out. And I do see where we have some screws and we have some little mount. So maybe I'm misreading that. And what they mean is that you can put additional magnifiers, say a diopter that's made specifically for this size, and you can secure those in. Or it means that you can take this magnifier out to replace with others to help focus the screen a little bit more if you have special use cases potentially. But let's measure this up while we've gone around the horn here. The goggles with the antennas, as I showed them to you earlier, but we don't have the battery cable on here, weigh just over 417 grams. The opening where our glasses fit in, the total width there is 147.3 millimeters. The opening just outside, I'm measuring on this side, the opening where just outside of our nose piece is, our opening with the foam on, is just about 50.6 millimeters. If we go here to the outer edge, it looks like about 44, maybe 45 millimeters. So this is just a quick look for those that might not have any experience in HDzero goggles. They are open source, and we do see firmware updates for these fairly regularly, which you can pursue if you need to, but you don't have to. You might want to slow this down, but again, this recording does not look like it does in the goggles. There's some pixelation that we have going on here. I might not have had OBS set up just right in order to record things as far as how they look in their output. So that's something to take with a grain of salt as far as what I'm showing you. This also has the Express LRS backpack and Wi-Fi features. Those you don't get with the BoxPro version. That only comes with the BoxPro Plus. We didn't go into the DVR, but I did test playing back some of the DVR. It did work all just normally. I did some other setting changes, but they're not specific to this review or anything like that. That was just for my own purposes. It does have a focus chart, but you can't really use the focus chart outside of replacing those magnifying lenses inside. It does have a clock, so you can set the clock, which is really handy when you're offloading your DVR footage and to be able to keep track of it. That one that I skipped over down there was input. That's where you change all the buttons and what they do. And here is our reception test. I will draw your eyes to the top right. This is an HDzero quad. This is a little Whoop with the AO All-in-One 5 from HDzero. That's the one that has the VTX built right into the all-in-one flight controller. That's really nice for whoops because it keeps the weight down. But those signal bars at the top, those will kind of give you some measurements as I kind of run around. And I'm doing more of an obstruction test than a range test. Range tests, I think, are still not legally advisable to be posting on YouTube, especially if you don't want to be drawing some negative attention to yourself. People get fussy with that stuff. But this will give you at least some rough idea of the reception. Again, not high science. The goggles aren't on the same level. They're not on the same plane. They don't have the same antennas. I do have them kind of facing in the general direction. When I was over there behind that stone area and behind that little corner of the house, that was actually behind me. So those patch antennas would have been at a great disadvantage. This was a morning flight before I went to work. Nice and calm out. I'd done this test a few times, but I kept doing little things wrong, like not recording my OSD on the HDzero goggles. And my neighbors are well aware of this. I communicate well with all my neighbors as far as whenever I'm going to be flying, and if I'm going to be flying outside of my own space. We're all on good terms. Some people seem to be surprised that my neighbors aren't bothered by my flying. I tend to try to not bother them. So if they're outside having fun, enjoying their outdoor spaces, I'm not going to zoom around. And if they come out while I'm flying, then I tend to shut it down. But sometimes they don't ask me to shut it down. They'll say, no, no, you can continue to fly. We just wanted to come outside for a bit. You won't bother us. So it's very nice. We're very fortunate that we have a nice little neighborhood where we all get along and we all kind of understand and operate in kind of the same sort of manner. So it is not a full bright day just as of yet, because this is it's about 10 minutes to 8. And this was actually before the time change. And of course, Mr. Squirrel has made another appearance in another video as we orbit the tree and orbit Mr. Squirrel. But I think that gives you a little bit of idea in my space on how the signal quality is for HDzero, at least at the very specific use case of using that all-in-one 5 flight controller. Again, I'm running R1 200 milliwatts on that VTX for HDzero, and just above that reading in the Betaflight OSD is the signal bars, which you can go through and plot those if you really want to. But again, this isn't a high science sort of analysis here. We're going to jump into analog now. Here's our analog test. You can see I'm running the Lightning 2. Don't be confused. Up in the top right-hand corner, R8 25. 25 is the milliwatt. When I arm, that will go up to 200, which is the max on this. It would have been, I think some of our friends that may live in places where you're only legally allowed to fly 25 milliwatt might appreciate another test. And if there's enough of you, please let me know in the comment section and I can put together a 25 milliwatt test. That's a pretty simple thing to do, really. But I didn't want to fill this up with so much of this testing that you get a paralysis by analysis. But this, again, is the same sort of test that I did with the HDzero Whoop. Doing a penetration or obstruction sort of test, hiding down behind that brick facing of that cook area, going in here behind the house a little bit, and then we fly the perimeter and we go down by the chimney side of the house and we hang out back there a little bit. And you can see on the BoxPro at this point, I am recording all the HDzero elements, and the HDzero goggles, I can see those elements, but because I use those goggles on the regular, I disabled the DVR option to record the HDzero elements of the DVR on my HDzero goggles. And that's because I do reviews and I don't want people to be confused seeing elements on the screen that are HDzero specific and then not having that when they have their particular goggles connected to a particular quad. So I just disabled that, and I hadn't had it corrected at this point of my flying. This was actually done before the HDzero reception testing that I've showed prior in this video. But that, I think, is a pretty good sample. I don't go all the way down to the neighbors in this particular case. I didn't have clearance. I didn't get confirmation from our neighbors over there via text that they weren't going to be out and about, and they have young kids. So I didn't want to stray out of the yard there. So we didn't go down the trail a little bit. But, with the antennas that it comes with, I think the reception is pretty much on par, which the HDzero goggles cost twice as much. Again, this puts me into that thinking that these are really good value. You've got a high quality screen, 100 nits screen, so it's compatible with all the different HDzero cameras, like the 90 FPS cameras. You've got 1800 nits LCD screen, so it's a high quality screen. It's bright, it's crisp. It looks really good in there, and I'm someone who has a slight vision impairment, and I can see the screen clearly. And even if you have a greater or different sort of vision impairment than I do, it's got the carve outs so that you can most likely get your glasses inside. I measured that out for you so you can measure your glasses to see if it would work for you as well. They've really covered a lot of bases, and that's kind of what HDzero has done in their goggles. They've made it very flexible. Then you have that open source nature that I've already mentioned within the video, to where, if you had the skill set, you could go in and tinker and make your own firmware if you were to be doing such a thing. Of course, that seems dangerous or hazardous to me, but that is an option. But the Discord that they have is pretty active, and I think that if case of something not working right has been found, they do a pretty good job and fix it pretty quickly. We can't say that for other goggle manufacturers. Sometimes the fix takes a really long time, and sometimes the fix doesn't happen at all, which disappoints those impacted by those things. But I start to have a little fun just doing some general flying. I figured I was done with the analysis or the reception testing, so I'm just going to go out and just have a little few minutes of fun with this. This is the Lightning II, by the way, as you can tell in the top center. It's got the craft name up there. Just a random quad I picked up. I've tested probably half a dozen cameras, maybe even 8 cameras. A lot of them are Whoop cameras because I can fly inside all the time. I did not experience any of the rolling screens that we see on a lot of analog receivers. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen at all, but I didn't find a case where it happened for me. I can't say I have a particular camera that causes that, and so I could go to it to test that. I just have to fly them and test them because it happens at random, even in my HDzero goggles with the SpeedyB or the rapid fire immersion receiver. And the receiver that I'm using on the HDzero goggles is the immersion RC receiver at this point. I know when you saw it earlier, it had the SpeedyB. I did some additional testing. I don't see where there's enough of a difference in this particular video where that I needed to include in the comparison, so I didn't. So that is the HDzero BoxPro and kind of the BoxPro Plus as well. If there is something that I kind of glazed over that enough people want to see, just let me know down in the video description. I can come back with some smaller snippet videos about those things. I do it that way because, one, I have to kind of gauge interest, and then 2, I know that these things, even at $299 or $349, that's a lot of money. And it's a big investment. This is the thing you're probably going to use across a bunch of different quads as your FPV journey continues. And you want to make sure that you get the right choice. Of course, I would always encourage you when it comes to specifically radios and goggles that if you have the opportunity to go to someone else who might have these or have some form of goggles to try them on and get a sense for how they work for you, how they fit on your face, things of this nature, that would be preferable. This sort of format just doesn't work for the fitment sort of stuff. I can only report how it fits on my face and kind of my kids' and wife's face, but I don't think there's any value in that either. But again, the thing that keeps ringing in my head about these is you're probably looking at these versus the Cobra X, and I think these are a much better value, and I think they offer more features. And if you're in the market for box goggles and you have the $299 and you don't need the Wi-Fi or the Express LRS features, that's the way to go. I suspect the people that go after the Wi-Fi and the Express LRS backpack features are a little bit more already involved in FPV and probably have a different set of goggles. But that's just me speculating. I think the one thing that you don't get with the BoxPro or the BoxPro Plus is that focal adjustment that we get with the goggles that cost twice as much, to where you can move each individual screen in and out. You can slide them based upon your eye spacing. We don't get that with box goggles, but we have the ability to insert glasses to really hopefully eliminate that, because I presume if your specs allow you to see clearly and you find you need them in the goggles, they'll still work the same way they do when you're just walking around. These should be available not only from HDzero, but all the major FPV retailers. We should have some available in the UK as well. I will put links to wherever I can find them down in the video description. These were sent for review. I did not pay for these. This time I didn't have to pay anything for these. When I did my HDzero goggle reviews, way back, I did pay, I think it was like 60 or 70% for those. But in this case, I didn't pay for these at all. And I do think I want to pick up some more of these antennas because I like the size and how sturdy they are. So at the very least, I think I'll be buying some of those. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in the comments section below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.